Thank you everyone for being here tonight and taking a little time out of your lives to listen to something that's quite different. And for those of you who do not know me, I'm Sid Jones, and I'm president of Greene County Development Corporation. I think I might know everybody in this audience, but with us tonight on the panel is BJ Hill, is from Landis, and BJ is going to talk a little bit from his perspective of the importance of labor and some of the challenges we have and some of his experience. Carlos Aguayo is next on the table here, and you'll learn a lot from Carlos, and he'll handle a lot of the majority of this discussion. I think most people here know Chuck Offenberger, and Chuck will kind of close and kind of handle the Q&A at the end. And Amy Vandermeer is with the school system, and she's going to speak from an education perspective and what she sees. So just to kind of get started here a little bit, I bet a lot of people wonder, what's this diversity thing all about? And where did it come from? And why are we talking about it now? And I can tell you that it's employee related and employer related. And even prior to COVID, we had manufacturers that were certainly looking for employees, and we couldn't find them, and they couldn't find them. And some of our larger companies, Landis has looked for employees for a long time. Most every one of our manufacturers has. And then when you go to COVID and you come out the other side of COVID, post-COVID, we all know that we saw help wanted signs everywhere. And all of a sudden it was every business that seemed to need help. And why was that? I mean, what changed? I had a hard time trying to figure out what the heck changed here. And all of a sudden, everyone's looking for employees. COVID gave us all a different mindset. Some of those people that were near retirement, I think, retired a little earlier than what they thought they might. And they kind of liked that home thing, and they learned that maybe my budget's going to be okay, and we'll do just fine, and they made that decision. Others learned to work from home, and that is really a different animal. And a lot of people are working from home and they enjoy it. And some people are more efficient at home. And so they start looking for something a little bit different in their life than what they experienced up till now. You start adding those all together, and then you take the growth of the factories that we've had. They've been on a little bit of a hold, but I think as you listen to them, you'll see that they don't expect that hold to last. And they actually see it kind of as a delay in some situations where that will even ramp up quicker. So you put all those things together, and all of a sudden there was a different sort of a need coming out of COVID. I think Carlos, I'm going to just give a little introduction here. Carlos was born in Nicaragua and came to the United States through California as a young person. Ended up in Carroll, Iowa when he was in 7th grade. His family moved to Carroll, I think, if not the first, one of the first Latino families in Carroll County. So there were some challenges, and Carlos graduated from Carroll High and then went on to school at UNI and got his degree in business or international business, went to work for John Deere, traveled the world for John Deere for 13 years, and spent some of that time, I'm sure, in South America, where his real expertise lies. So when I first got introduced to Carlos, it was through Ken Paxton. And we were trying to figure out, as a development corporation, what should we do? Should we play a role in trying to help? And if there's anything about development, it was always jobs, number one. But we didn't have enough. We couldn't find jobs, and now we can't find people. So we do need to be a part of that. And the Development Corporation thought that. So we got introduced to Carlos. I think by the time you get done here, we're going to have Carlos speak. We're going to have 2 of the guests speak. And then we'll move on to Chuck, and he'll kind of close this. So that gives you a little background on where we're at, kind of the importance that we see. And Carlos, I'm just going to turn this over to you and let you lead us. So here you go.
Thank you, Sid. Good evening, everybody. First and foremost, thank you for being here with us tonight to talk about this monumental and very exciting project that we call Nueva Vida in Greene County, which translates to New Life in Greene County. As Sid said, I'm from the area. My family and I, we moved to Iowa when I was very young, just grew up down the road in Carroll. And it gave me a unique perspective because we were one of the first families in Carroll that were Latino or Hispanic. And I could tell you I was the only Hispanic person every single grade that I went through school, all the way up to high school. And it was exciting, it was interesting, culture shock in itself, moving from California to rural Iowa, but then also a cultural shock, being a Latino in rural Iowa. So a lot of perspective, a lot of positive lessons learned, and my family and I are still here, obviously in the area. Iowa's our home, and that's for the good reason that we love the people, we love the state, and we love our communities. I am going to walk you through just a little bit about what we do at Latino IQ, and then I'm going to walk you through just some items of the project and the work that we've been doing over the last 5-6 months now, I guess. It's kind of hard to think about how fast time goes. But first of all, Latino IQ, what we are is we're an organization, we're consultants that really help organizations, cities, counties, political campaigns, you name it, any organization that really wants to understand their Latino stakeholder better. So it could be an employer looking for employees. It could be a company or a business looking to reach out to the Latino demographic as customers or clients. And it could be a city or a county who's looking to add vibrancy or growth to their area by looking to reach into the fastest growing population in America today, which is the Latino demographic. So, as Sid said, we started conversations mid to late last year about the idea and the concept for the project to really understand was there a fit to what we do at our company for our services to what the vision was for the project here in Greene County. And as a quick sidebar, the first time they reached out, I was super elated, super excited about a project like this happening here in West Central Iowa. If you would have told me 10 or 15 years ago that there would be a project to this type of caliber, and with this type of nature, I would have said no way, not in West Central Iowa. Maybe in Des Moines, maybe in the Quad Cities, maybe in that general area over there. So I'm super proud to be part of this because it's really something that is exciting, and it's something that you don't think about happening maybe in our immediate area. So with that, we started thinking about what does this really mean? And if you paid attention to the news in the last 5, 10, 15 years, there's this pattern that we're seeing in rural America. We're seeing a decrease in population, and it's really something that comes up all the time when we see or hear an area, a city, town, county, really just not be viable anymore. First, maybe it's an employer that leaves town, maybe it's the second employer, maybe shops start shutting down in the district area, you name it. This is not something that is Iowa specific, it's not something that's Midwest specific, it's a pandemic that happens all across the country. So when you take a look at what is going on, we think about what we can do about this and how do you really put the pieces in place to be able to slowly start turning the tide. And one of the things that we're seeing work really, really well in other parts of the country, including here in the Midwest, and lessons learned that we've seen from other communities here in Iowa, like Storm Lake, Marshalltown, parts of eastern Iowa. There are some lessons learned that have worked in these areas that we can take a look at replicating and applying them to what makes sense here to be able to bear the fruits of those labors. So that's when we started thinking about how does the Latino market really influence and play into this project, and how can we go about this? One of the first things that we have to think about when we think about this project is change, right? Sometimes change is not easy. Sometimes change takes quite a while to implement, and there's speed bumps and bruises along the way, but nonetheless, change is needed. Change in how we think about acquiring more residents to our area, change to think about how we acquire new employees to our areas of work, and change about how we grow the vitality of our downtown district with new businesses, with new dining options, with new entertainment options for our families when we think about what we're doing this weekend or what we're doing this evening. And, you know, thinking about, well, let's get the heck out of town to go have some fun. Well, we can do stuff here locally where we can keep our dollars locally. So changing how we think, take a look at that, and applying things that we know have worked in similar environment than ours, it was the first thing that was top of mind for us at Latino IQ that I talked to Ken, Sid, and Chuck about, and kind of just painted the first vision. So you saw this slide already, new concept, new branding of the project. You've been hearing Greene County Diversity Project probably quite a bit since we started. But we wanted to really brand this in a way that it resonated with our end demographic or end target market that we're going after. And when you think about what new life in Greene County might mean to you as an English speaker, if you see this on a billboard or if you see this on an ad, and what it means to a Latino person that sees this in a promotional environment, we really want to depict and we want to create that emotion of new opportunity. We want to create the emotion of growth. We want to create the emotion and the reality of a place where they're going to be welcome because they add positive and they have the same values of the things that we want for the Greene County community, and they also want to do that. So the project, as we're coining it now, and what you're going to see is Nueva Vida in Greene County. As I said before, it translates to new life in Greene County. What does the project actually entail? So if you heard me talk about this in the radio or through one of Chuck's articles or throughout the media, the easiest way I can explain this to you is there's 3 legs of the stool, or 3 areas of priority for us. Number 1, and first and foremost, it's about supporting our local employers stop the bleed of the retention and the churn and the lack of employees that they have on hand to be able to meet the production needs they have for their business. So we know today that our major employers in all the different sectors, including ag, by the way, and what I mean by that, the individual producer needs help, right? This is something that's not only tied to our individual communities, tied to the overall landscape across Iowa, but we have it, and across the state and country, excuse me. But we have a unique opportunity that many communities don't have in Iowa or in other areas. When you think about the jobs, the type of positions and work that we do here, and we connect that to when you think about Latino-rich cities or counties, Greene County has a whole different opportunity of how we can acquire Latinos and just any general employee compared to some of our neighboring communities in other parts of the state. We have great paying jobs here. We have a diverse type of industries here. A lot of it is tied to manufacturing. We have a lot of ag, but we have service industry as well. Hospital being one of them, the casino. So we have a diversity in terms of offerings that not every single community can offer and think about talking about and saying, hey, come here. So one of the things that we have to think about is the first priority is the work component, and that's basically getting more employees to apply for the positions that we have today. So what we did back in November is we took a little tour and talked to to many of the employers in the area and said, what do you need? How do we help you get that? And what's your biggest headache today with your operations when it's tying to employees? And we heard lots of different things. But one of the biggest things that we heard is, hey, we either cannot operate our business as we think about it from a customer standpoint and being able to be more profitable. We're managing our business to make sure that we don't take off our employees because we can't afford to lose them. So we have to be able to do everything we can to retain the employees and not think about the business, because right now our employees are the most important thing. That's one example. The other example is we right now cannot grow or meet the demand that we have. We have to put orders aside, or we have to think about how our production schedule changes, because we just don't have the people to fill the needs. And then when we talk to ag leaders, same thing, right? We need help. We can't get it. Our family doesn't really have the interest, or the next generation doesn't have the interest to take the mantle and take the operation forward. We need help wherever we can get it. So first and foremost, the first portion of the slide there and the first board on the easel, bar none, our first priority is how do we get more applicants to fill the jobs that our employers have. The second area of our project and focus is what I call the live component. So today, if we parked 100 employees outside of the door, where would they live? Right? We don't have the capacity in terms of single family housing or apartments or condos, of any of that. So one of the things that we have to think about is how do we go into bringing people to the community to be able to make sure that they want to grow roots here and be part of the community. So that's the live component, and that's to basically make sure that we have residents who want to live here, who want to contribute to the community, who want to add value to the values that we already have here, and that see the same benefits and opportunities to bringing their families here. So we think about live, we think about more housing. Now you might be thinking, how in the heck do you get more housing? Well, slowly, right? First of all, we think about how we can get 5 or 10 houses. How we think about maybe more opportunities for open lots that we can repurpose. That also means that some of you that have some older houses, you might be able to look at different opportunities, because there's more options now for residents coming in, as well as residents who are here that want to upgrade, want something new, etc., etc. So the second most important bullet here is the live component, and that's building community to be able to add a diverse resident base to Greene County. The third component is the play component, and I'm sorry I don't have a better name for it, but that's just the way that I think about it in my head. And when I think about play, I think about everything else that goes into entertainment and options for our families. So I think about dining. I think about entertainment. I think about shopping. I think about everything that my family does on a weekend when we try to figure out what we're going to do with the kids, where we're going to go out to eat, where we're going to go shop. And as you all know, in rural areas, when we think about those things about shopping, dining, and entertainment, we don't think about necessarily sticking close to home. We think about traveling an hour or 2 hours away to Des Moines, Sioux City, Omaha, Kansas City, you name it, because there's more options there. Now, I'm not saying we're going to make Greene County, Kansas City, or Omaha, or anything like that. What I'm saying is we're going to start small and bring more options so that we have more options to consider, but then also so that we can have residents from other areas come here and also spend their money here to cycle it back through the community. So those are the 3 areas of the legs of the stool as I see it. as I explain it to you, I want you to kind of just think about, there's 3 areas that we're thinking about. We don't work on these 3 areas at the same time. As I said before, we have priorities. The work component comes first, and then we take a look at setting up the pieces in parallel as fast as we're able to do it, but when it makes sense and we have the resources. So then the next component is why Latinos? And whether you know it or not, Latinos are the fastest growing demographic in Iowa and definitely in the country. So for us, it's not because I'm a Latino male or that's my heritage or, that's what I care about. It's because it's where the opportunity is. So if we know that we have an aging population that we're not replacing in the workforce, if we know that our kids who are graduating high school are leaving and we don't have the influx of employees to offset that change, we have to go out and see where we can be able to find these folks to be able to help us in these areas. And the value proposition that I see with Latinos is the sheer numbers. Right now, there's roughly around 200,000 Latinos in our area. That's actually a little bit higher because the census doesn't take into consideration other sub-components of that group. But the biggest component to think about here is that if the forecasts are true and correct, this population will double in 15, 20 years, 30 years. So when we think about what does Greene County look like in the future and how do we grow and who do we invite to grow with us, to me, it makes perfect sense to think about the Latino population. That's item number 1, why we focus on Latinos. Item number 2 is the values. Most of the Latinos that live here in Iowa have the same values as you and I. Meaning that family comes first. We like to live in rural areas where we can spread out and be able to provide not the hecticness of city life. We want something that's a little bit slower paced and a little bit more area to grow with our family. We value faith and we value community. So when we think about when we grow our community, who are those folks that we want to invite? We want to think about a community that's similar to us. Yes, there's different background and cultural differences, but at the core values, Latinos share that Iowa value when it comes to family, community, faith, and those components that I took a look at. So I want to make sure that people understand it's not that we think that they're, something special that no other group provides. It's a component of shared values, but it's also about fishing where the fish are and looking at the opportunities that we have. And as you'll see in this slide, we have lots of opportunities in our close proximity. So if you take a look at the areas that are in gray and green, those are the counties that are close to us within a driving distance where we can go out and talk about how great of a county we are, how great of opportunities we have in employment, and the program that we're trying to get together to be able to attract folks to Greene County. When you take a look at how this map changes over the next 5 or 10 years, you will see a lot more gray area, you will see a lot more green area, which only benefits us even further as we go along. Really quick, I think I'm really over time. I tend to speak a lot, so I'll go a little bit faster, but not try to leave out any details. As I mentioned earlier, we started really this project back in November and kicked it off talking to people like BJ, Brian, right? Yeah. BJ. At Landis, Mary over at the hospital, Kristen at AI, major employers, really talking about the support that we needed for the project, and if they were really bought in with the concept and how we really helped. So since November, we've really been out talking to folks about the project, about the vision and the mission for the project, and being able to answer any questions or any doubts that people had with this. We've also been able to think about how we finance this. How do we structure this? How do we pay for the component of the project? And what kind of return on investment do we see when we think about investing the money that we're thinking about this project in a long-term plan? We've also been working on infrastructure. How does the plan really work? What technologies are we going to use to attract employees? What technologies and processes and resources are we going to use to retain employees? How do we help the city? How do we help the police department? How do we help the employers? How do we help the schools? How do we help all of you really better understand what's going on, put the parameters in place that we need to have, think about any training that needs to happen before we have people come here, right? Because we want to be ready and not really be caught off guard like some other cities and some other towns have been off guard when they think about this project. We want to think about this methodically, and we want to make sure that we think about this in a very astute way. As far as future goals, really the hard work begins now. Some of you know that the project has been formally approved, and we're really thinking about what comes next, especially going back to that work component. How do we get really fast at going into getting applicants into the work environment and the employers in the area? So it's about making sure that we have our promotion strategies, making sure that we have our incentives, making sure that we have all our ducks in a row and start executing on these campaigns and these strategies that we've been setting up for the last 5-6 months. Last, we need you. We need every single one of you here in this room. We need every single one of you every single person that you have back home with you. We need the whole county to really make this work. If you have questions, talk to us. We really want to understand what you're thinking and kind of what your perspectives are to make sure that we're all on the same page. When you start seeing folks in your areas of employment, when you start seeing folks in the downtowns, when you start seeing folks at church, when you start seeing folks just anywhere that you know are newcomers, think about how you would want to be treated. Think about how you would want to be offered a helping hand to kind of get used to your surroundings. And just making sure that as a community, we take a look at how this really makes us all thrive, how the rising tide lifts all boats. And if we don't have a buy-in, maybe this works a little bit for the employers, maybe this works a little bit for the commerce area, but this truly is a project that takes a whole community to really buy in. Schools, emergency services, city services, employers, you name it. It takes a whole ecosystem for this to work. And it can work. It has worked. We have lessons learned, and we could apply those here in Greene County to have that success. So with that, I went over time grossly, so I apologize to everybody here, but we'll pass it on to these folks, to BJ and to Amy.
Thank you, Carlos. At the end, we'll have a Q&A session, so just keep those in your mind. BJ's been part of GCDC. He's part of the steering committee here. Obviously, as a large employer and deeply rooted in agriculture in every way, BJ's around this a long time and has some things he'd like to share. So, BJ.
Thank you. Thank you. So I know Landis may not be a huge employer like some of the big manufacturers, but we do have a lot of locations. Many in this area, a few in Greene County. And I've been with Landis since 2018. I started in Ralston, and I've been in Jefferson for about 1.5 years now. And that entire time, I've had open, we call them requisitions. We've had open spots at my locations, and we are blessed to have gotten a couple new guys recently, but I've been over 1 year without even an application. So, it boils down to a lot of different reasons, right? There's not as many. Who used to work at the elevator years ago? Farm kids, right? Not quite as many as there used to be. Kids going to school, kids going off to college. Not a lot of guys and gals going directly into just the workforce, if you will, especially locally. And it's not like we're just looking for general labor. Everybody, a lot of guys start in operations, but custom applicators, we're looking for more than just general laborers, right? There's a lot of opportunity in Landis. If you go on Landis's website right now, there's a career center. You'll see dozens and dozens and dozens of open requisitions. Every location needs people. And we've been so short for so long that now we're starting to lose guys and gals that have been around for years who are just getting worked into the ground. As employers, we're trying to figure out work-life balance. Well, how do you do work-life balance when there's only one guy at a location and you got to load a train every week, right? So then locations like us who have a couple extra guys now, we went to Templeton this week to help them get cleaned up. Eric, my grain superintendent, I think has loaded every train in Baird but one in the last year. So you're trying to find the balance, and it's hard, right? It's hard. In Ralston, I got 2 open right now. Baird is losing 2. They lost 1 last week. They're losing another one. Templeton's down to 1 guy. I think Farmville has 1 guy. It's just who wants to do it. And like I said, there's a lot of opportunity. You guys all know Bill Taggart, I'm sure. Rick Humple, been there for many, many years. They could both retire tomorrow if they wanted to. And then I got 1 outside guy. And Bill's been doing agronomy. Bill used to have 17 employees. I hear the stories every day. He had 5 even just a few years ago, and now he spent the majority of the last year by himself trying to do seed, chemical, and hydrous. It's wearing, right? It just so happens right now we're starting to rebuild our elevator out there. Empire Ag is the contractor on it. They moved in, they mobilized a few months ago. We're starting to they poured concrete. We got the boot pit in. That whole workforce almost entirely is Latino. Diego, the foreman, very bright, very smart, great kid. I call him a kid because I'm almost 50. He might not be a kid, but I've already Eric, who knows, he used to work at Tri-County, said that a lady at Tri-County called Eric and said how professional and how much she enjoyed working with Diego, because obviously they're getting a lot of lumber and stuff from them. Just a little side note there of what we think of them guys. They're all very polite, hardworking. So yeah, it's been a really good, and that we had contractors there all last year after our accident, right, getting back ready for harvest. And most of them were most of laborers, and they're not just laborers, they're welders and millwrights, and we're not just talking guys puddling concrete either. And these guys are skilled guys, but that's who they have because that's all they can find. So when this started, it just seemed like a great opportunity to get people in. Like I said, there's so much opportunity within Landis. You might start, a lot of guys start as an ops tech. We call them ops techs, right? Operations technicians. That's where you start. You kind of got to learn from the ground up. Nobody knows how to do anhydrous and treat seed and stuff when they first start, right? So, but there's so much opportunity in Landis right now for guys who want to come in and work your way up to a superintendent or, like I said, there's custom applicators. Almost every location needs a custom applicator right now. Those are the guys driving the brand new tractors and the brand new sprayers. I mean, this is every position within Landis basically has an open spot right now. And I know we might only have 3 locations in Greene County, but there's 50 Landis locations and everybody needs somebody, right? So that's why this seemed like a really great opportunity. We do use Landis does use migrants in the fall, right? They come in for 2 or 3 months. They have for many years, but then they're just here for harvest, and they are just dumping trucks, and that's what they're brought in to do. And tell you what, those guys, even though there's usually one that speaks good English and kind of communicates for the rest, but they are just the hardest working guys. We work 12 hours a day during harvest. We get them in the store. They stayed in a hotel at Super 8 this last year. We used to have a house down by Cooper. that kind of fell through. But I tell you what, there's always a smile on their face. Even if it's a 12-hour day in the rain, rain or shine. I mean, I've had definitely great experiences. So that's why we're looking I'm looking at this as a great opportunity to try and get some guys that aren't just laborers, the guys that want to come to town, learn how to do what we do, and move right on up in the company as they do it. So.
BJ, thank you very much. Next, we're going to have Amy speak, and Amy has a really unique perspective. Has an education perspective on this and a personal perspective on this. So, Amy, we'll turn that over to you.
Hello, I'm Amy Vandermeer, and I am from Fargo, North Dakota, and I moved to Iowa to start teaching Spanish. I taught in Minnesota for 5 years at Worthington, Minnesota, and then I was with Beth here for 15 years, and now we have Maribel and myself teaching Spanish. I started studying Spanish. There was a really cute boy that spoke Spanish, and I thought, I want to know what he's saying to his parents about me. Well, and I loved Spanish in general, so I started studying Spanish in college, and then went on, got my degree. That's why I've been teaching 26 years. I've been in Greene County it'll be 20 years now, coming up next year. So I just wanted to give a little perspective. I love that we've had a few families move in, and I've been with them for 15 years, translating for them, taking them to doctor's appointments, trying to help out where I can. And they've pretty much adopted me as a family member, which reminded me about 2 days before I got Chuck's email. There was if anybody's friends with me on Facebook, you may have seen this. They tagged me in a post. I was the maid of honor in one of their weddings about 10 years ago, and I just thought that was so ironic that popped up on Facebook, and they were saying, remember this when you were in our wedding, and then this email came came through, and so to come here and talk. I've had a really great experience at the high school. The students really intermingle together. We had about 2 or 3 students that came a couple years ago, and when they first got here, they didn't speak any English, and it was so fun to watch our students from Greene County interact with them, and they would teach each other English to them and Spanish to our student, and some of our students sparked an interest in learning Spanish. They would come in and say a phrase that they had been taught by one of the families, and so it's been a really good experience. I'm right now testing for seal of biliteracy. We have in 2017, Governor Reynolds put into place the seal of biliteracy. So each year, students can test to show that they are biliterate, not bilingual, but biliterate, that they can read and write, basic understanding of another language. And it is fun to see the students that speak Spanish always want to know, how did you do? Did you get a good score? You have to get a 5 in all 4 categories to pass. There's reading, writing, speaking, listening, but it's just really fun to see the interaction between them. So I would say, I know when there was just one family that came first, and Beth and I were translating for them, and then a brother came, and then another sister, and so one of the struggles we ran into is finding enough people to translate. I know you helped, Rosemary, transporting families and whatnot, so that is one thing that we need to have in place is to help them acclimate to the town and see where places are, especially with the translating. I know the clinic now has the online, so that's been really helpful to have that, but I know it can be a culture shock. My husband is from Spain, and when he first moved to small town Jefferson, he was standing at the window looking outside, and he said, do people even live in these houses around here? There's nobody on the street. It was so dead. And to me, I get in my car, I go to work, then I get in my car, go to the grocery store. I'm not out and about walking around, but when his family was here, I drove up to the courthouse because I had to do something at the driver's license place. It's maybe 4 blocks from my house, so I pulled up, I parked, and his mom looked at me and said, what's going on? I said, oh, we're here. And she said, you got in your car to go 4 blocks? You didn't walk? And then I felt really guilty. I said, oh, you're right. I should be walking. But anyway, I am just kind of here for if anybody had any school questions and to give my perspective on interacting with the families. I've really become part of their family, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if any of you know Chuck very well, you know he's a baseball guy. And so he's my closer. And so Chuck's going to close this here and kind of bring this all together in really a unique way, because he has an incredibly unique experience in the diversity world. And Chuck is the chairperson of this steering committee. He's incredibly well connected, not only in the state of Iowa, but nationally. And we're very fortunate to have his skill set here to help us. So, Chuck, I'm going to let you close.
Thank you, Sid. And thank you, everybody, for coming out. This is a tremendous crowd here. Some of you have heard me say before, my late wife, Carla Offenberger, and I came here 18 years ago, and we sure as hell didn't come to try to save Greene County. We just wanted to ride our bicycles on the Raccoon River Valley Trail. Well, over time, we got involved in a few things in the community, and then we both got sick. We both got really sick with cancer, and as you know, we lost Carla last July. I said later, this would not work as an economic development slogan for the county, but our feeling was that if you're going to really get sick and need help, this is where you want to be. Because people rallied around us like we could not believe, and it's still going on. And so my feeling about Greene County really intensified right then and there, because it didn't feel like I was here to save Greene County at all. Now I feel like I'm here to pay my debts to Greene County for all the support we had. This project, I'm looking at, I've done a few things around the state in my life and gotten to see a lot of the world and do different things. I think this is going to be probably the last big deal of my career, but it's also probably going to be a career highlight for me. I so look forward to this. As Sid mentioned, 25 years ago, Governor Tom Vilsack appointed me to be on his Strategic Planning Council, and we were charged with he thought the state needed more strategic, longer-term thinking. So he appointed 37 of us from various occupations in various places across the state to come here, or to get together, spend a year and a half, 2 years, looking at the future of Iowa and coming up with ideas about what we should do and an action plan on how to get there. Sort of resembles this, actually. We had several big things come out of it. The Vision Iowa program, we kind of refocused economic development in the state to look at the biosciences and advanced manufacturing and new opportunities in agriculture. We also, probably our biggest, boldest recommendation, and this is in 1999-2000, Iowa needed increased immigration at all levels of the socioeconomic ladder from all areas of the world, because we knew our native population here was not going to grow. And in fact, it was going to be in steep decline. And as we move through the baby boomer generation, and so we recommended that, and 20 years ago when we came out with that, Iowa wasn't ready for it, and it just didn't happen, and there was a lot of resistance. Well, much has changed in 20 years. Now the Latino population started growing, other cultures started sending, we've got more people here. In many ways, this is like 100 years ago in Iowa with the people coming from around the world who are here now. We're much more diverse in Iowa than we ever were earlier in our lifetimes. And so the 5 years ago, in 1998, I left my longtime job at the Des Moines Register. In '99, Carla and I moved to Storm Lake and taught at Buena Vista for 5 years up there. One of the most diverse communities in the Midwest, and we loved every minute of it. We had friends from around the world. 26 different languages then were spoken in the Storm Lake schools. You've read many stories about it. And that town not only grew amazingly, it's now population of 15,000. It's so much younger and it's so much more vibrant than it's ever been in its history that it's just been a thrill to see it. So, you know, that was my other experience in this, was what I had been through in Storm Lake 5 years ago. So in November, when Sid Jones asked me if I would be interested in jumping aboard on this with the steering committee, I really immediately said yes. I just think the opportunity here is going to be a real thrill. I hesitate to call them secret weapons, but I think we've got 6 things that I can identify that are going to make this work better in Greene County than I've seen it work anywhere else in the state. And those 6 are, and this goes right to the heart of small town living, we all know each other. And so when we can help BJ at Landis, or Mary at Greene County Medical Center, or Kristen at American Athletic, and our other employers and our businesses around the square, we all know each other and we can move quickly and nimbly, much more so than larger places. It's a heck of an advantage. Second, you heard a reference to this from BJ. Our farmers and our agribusinesses here have had Latino workers for 25 years. And they know over and over, we hear some of the best workers. Dedicated people, grateful for the opportunity, go-get-em types, fun people. And that's what we're going after. That's an advantage for us, that we have that experience, especially in the farm sector. Because we've already seen it in this, that the farm folks are stepping up in support of this. Third, think about Greene County and the jobs we're talking about are our employers. It's an advantage. We're not talking meatpacking jobs. Got to have meatpacking jobs in Iowa. We know that, and they're important, and they're good paying jobs now with great benefits. We're going to be hard pressed to compete with them, except we're talking a little higher level job than that. More comfortable, more sustainable over a long career, more interesting, better training, better benefits. So we're real competitive on that. Fourth, we all understand the need to grow. You've heard some of that too. Really, the trigger on this whole project was when Scranton Manufacturing had to expand, couldn't get welders, had to expand to serve their market, and wound up going to Mississippi, buying a building, opening a new factory there, and now it's 250 jobs. Good for Scranton Manufacturing, for sure. It gave them a new place to market from and ship from. But the fact is, and this is what's got GCDC moving on this, was those 250 jobs should have been right here. We should have kept them here, but we couldn't do it at the time. Fifth, we've got Gil Leppi and Teresa Brown at Casa de Oro. Has anybody ever seen happier, harder working people? They were going to be here to speak tonight, but they can't leave during the dinner hour, for goodness sakes. They're among the most liked Greene Countyans, most popular Greene Countyans that we have. And the Casa de Oro has become a meeting place for all of us in Greene County. And they've become some of our leading ambassadors, and they know people from all over the world. And we're going to be working with them real close. Sixth, sharing what we've got here. And this gets down to what my job is on the steering committee as we come out and present this project to you and ask for your support. My job is to offer a little vision based on what I've seen during my career all over. I don't mind nagging you when I have to, as you all know. I also have contacts around that I'm pleased to be able to use to help build this county. And then the final thing I bring to this is I'm here to constantly remind you how good you are. This is just one of the best places to live in the world. great people who welcomed a couple of weirdos from Storm Lake 18 years ago, and now have opened up to many others, and now we have an opportunity to build with population from all over everywhere, and it's going to save Greene County. Since Sid got me into this, I have a new morning meditation, and this comes out at Christmas time. I sat down and I talked to 8 local Latino people. Carlos, I'm counting him as one of them. And we sat down and talked about what their experiences had been in Greene County, what their ideas about, what they thought of this project idea, what ideas they had, how they would guide us. And they were all in. And I said, so where is this going to go? And they said, oh, the people will come. They'll come. And they got little kids, and they're going to have more, and we'll grow for sure. And so from that, I sat down afterwards and I said, that Christmas time conversations with those people, what it really gave me was the best gift I've had in several years, and what that was hope. Hope for our county. And then I wrote this, and I'll just use this to conclude, and then we'll go to your questions. So what the Diversity Project is really all about. Let me draw some quick conclusions, and these numbers are mine and nobody else's. Give us 250 more Latino families, like the people I had just interviewed for several hours. Give us 250 so we can fill the 250 jobs open right now in this county. And if we get those 250 and we convince them to bring their families, which is what this is all about, our population is going to grow by 1,000, which would be 10% of our population. We've lost, 100 years ago right now, Greene County's population was nearly 20,000, and now we're 9,780. But grow it by 10%, get the 1,000, grow it by 10%, and all 7 of our incorporated towns would be growing. The critical workforce shortages that almost all our major employees are facing would ease. Declining enrollment in our 2 public school systems would be history. So, another couple years, let's get that up to 500 families that we've brought in. That'd be 2,000 people. Our population, we'd have grown it by 20%. And our major employers would all be adding shifts. We likely would be building a couple of new elementary schools. We'd have a couple dozen new family-owned specialty shops opening in our revived business districts. There'd be new construction in all our towns, including the 3 unincorporated villages. We'd be renovating and enlarging all our parks. This would be a more lively, fun, prosperous place to live, work, and play. And stories about the economic miracle of Greene County, Iowa would be told across the nation and around the world. It's going to happen right here. And God, is it going to be fun. So please jump on board, but don't hesitate to throw hard questions at us. We want to talk. We want to make everybody happy with this, because we're going to get some of the best neighbors we've ever had from this project. So I think we're ready for questions, right?
We are.
Okay. So put your hands in the air and we'll come around. Anybody want to lead us? Okay, then. Bill?
I had one person asking, well, maybe more than one. When we attract people here, we have adequate training lined up so that Sprint manufacturing needs 20 people. Can we train them that quickly? I assume that's kind of what the Career Academy is going to maybe help with, but that's the question I had heard.
Career Academy is what's going to answer some of that. I mean, you look at the 6 strands of education we put there, and one of them is advanced manufacturing. It is machining. You know, I was just out at PowerLift this week, and PowerLift has a new robot. Their robot in 12 hours produces 10 times what a full-time person does in a week. 10 times. Quality's better. Do they still need the other employee? They do, because they keep growing. They keep getting bigger. But who runs the robot? They have one person that can program the robot. And that's what Jeff Connor says would be nice if we could get out of our academy, is not only the people that continue to weld and do all of that. It's the advanced manufacturing. It's the machinery that today is operated all by computers and chips. And so, yeah, the academy is a big part of it, but we have really good training that happens in all of our factories today. They really train their own people very well, and I think with the right people can get them up to speed in a production way quickly.
Next.
Where are these people coming from? Are they going to be, Steve Howard, are they going to be bused in from Texas and the government's going to bust them here? How are they going to get here? I mean, you're here to sell this program, which is already going forward. You haven't sold me yet. Good. Because what I see happening is what happened to Perry. When I was a young man, my family would go to Perry, hold on a minute, we'd go to Perry, go shopping. Nice little town. Not a nice town now. I wouldn't live there to pay me to. I don't want that to happen here. You can drive through this town and it's nice, it's clean. Well, what you're saying, in 5-6 years, we need a Spanish-speaking teacher because I need to speak Spanish. No, I'm an American. Tell us, I gotta tell this because this is wrong. Did Greene County vote on this, or is this you guys up there? Did you guys have a survey? I didn't get a survey to say I want this to happen. Help me out.
First, thanks for asking. I appreciate you
I want to make
asking.
sure that people doesn't come here.
Yeah, but quick question. Are you from Greene County? I think you are.
Yes, okay.
Carlos, you want to go answer this?
Yeah, so to answer the question, where we bring people from, we have a strategy, but we have to put this into place to figure out what pays dividends in Destin. Today we know whether it's Latino, black, yellow, blue, purple, we want to bring anybody into the county. We don't have anybody for them we don't have anywhere for them to live, right? So the first strategy is, where do we go to get folks that live currently within a commutable distance so that they can come to the places of employ here in Greene County? So no, we're not going to get them from Texas or California right away. We're going to try to get people who are locally here, who have those Iowa values, right? We want to get people that are comfortable thinking about, can they drive 20 minutes, 30 minutes? And if they can't drive, how do we work with our partners? How do we work with the employers to make sure that we provide transportation options, not only for Latinos, but for anybody that we can go out that lives outside the county, that falls within that parameter, that we can bring to the counties. Why is that important? Well, we know we don't have the labor pool here, so we have to go outward. We also face major competition. All of our employers here face major competitions all across the state, and that competition is stiff. They already are using transportation methods to be able to bring people to the places of employ. So we're going to look, to answer your question, sir, the first strategy is look for places that are commutable distance to and from Greene County. As we expand outward and you think about this map, if you draw rings around it, we have external rings that we are also going to take a look at. Where do we recruit from and what areas are we actually fishing in, right, in those fishing pools. Now, that's where they come from. That's where we're going to start. We're going to check the metrics every step of the way. We're going to make sure that it makes sense what we're doing and that we're seeing the dividend that we want to look at to get those employees applying at our employers.
You didn't answer the question. Are they going to be legal citizens that have been, came through the process? You didn't answer the question.
Can you read it?
Are they going to be legal citizens that came through a process to become Americans? Did they go through a process?
So every employer that I know has to go through a verified check, has to go through immigration status to hire somebody that's illegal. But to hire somebody that's legal. Black, white, purple, blue, it doesn't matter. And I'm just giving you my honest opinion, right? So any of the employers that we have in Greene County that I've seen, that I work for, have to go through a vetted process in their HR department to make sure that somebody who's working for them has a legal status. I can't answer that for you from an employer standpoint because I don't work with the employers, or nor do I control that process, but every single employer that I've ever worked for or have talked to vets that very strongly.
But if you're going out and looking for these people, shouldn't you be the ones asking them, are you a legal citizen of the United States?
I'm not, you're wanting me to ask them if they're legal or
If you're
illegal?
going out and looking for these people, these families, shouldn't you ask them, are you a legal citizen?
They're going to go through this.
Employers do it?
They're going to go through the same application process. I can't tell Landis or John Deere or anybody else how to go through their application process or their employee onboarding process. Each company has their own method.
From our standpoint, just excuse me, you've had your chance, we're answering your question. From our project standpoint, yes, we will ask somebody if they need help with their documentation and immigration status, and we will help arrange help for them to get it. We want people here as long-term.
Question. Thank you. They're not legal.
I didn't say it. Most of
Did you say they're going to help them?
Okay, we're going to move on. We've tried to answer. Okay,
You did.
please sit down. We're going to move on, and we can talk afterwards if you want. Okay.
Chuck, Mary asked if she could speak here.
Yes,
Mary Nieto is the HR director at Greene County Medical Center. Mary is a Latino, and she has a very unique perspective. When I spent a little time with Mary, I learned a lot, and I had a lot of misconceptions. But Mary, just talk about some of your recent hires.
So, thank you so much. My name is Mary, and I'm the HR director at Greene County Medical Center. I joined the Medical Center in January of 2019, and when I heard about this project, I actually asked to be on the steering committee because I was really proud about the program and what it stood for. To date, we kind of took the initiative and have already started to employ. What we're looking for is to employ candidates that meet specific criteria. Organizations have to ask a lot of questions, and we go through a very rigorous process. So there's a lot of checks and balances that make sure that have to take place when we are hiring people. I'm very happy to report as of today, since I've heard about the project, we've already hired 6 Latinos from the areas, different areas around us. I myself relocated from California. I came to Iowa because my grandfather was a farmer in Centerville, Iowa. I had excellent summers as a child here, and I came for quality of life. And one of the things that I really strive on is making sure that the decisions that we're making when we're looking for staff, this is a diversity project, but we're looking for talent that wants to come here to Greene County Medical Center, wants to buy a home. I brought a family from Salt Lake City. They're working at the hospital. We have now 2 Spanish-speaking in the clinic that drive from Coon Rapids. I have a family that works at the school, and now the husband works at the hospital in our janitorial EBS location. We have now 4 Latinos in EBS. So we have an excellent training program. I speak Spanish, so I do a lot of the translations. A couple of the individuals, we have an individual by the name of Jesus Valles, lives in Scranton with his wife, who's an Iowan. And he actually was just named the Van Zeldin Excellence Award winner, and he's only been with the organization for less than 2 years. We've hired some individuals that have moved from Arizona, an RN. We brought in another RN recently from Omaha that are not Latino, but like I said, we're recruiting for anyone that has the right skills to be able to fill these jobs. We have 40 requisitions open. When I joined, there was almost like 66. So definitely COVID has made an impact, but now that we have this project to partner with, and also I share and contact the other HR individuals. If I get candidates that are relocating, I'll reach out to find their partners' jobs, their grown children jobs. So I think that's a valid question, but all of the organizations, we do have these processes in place to make sure that we're making the best decisions for our organization and for the community.
Thank you, Mary. Anybody else? We've got time for a couple more, and then we'll follow up. Yes, ma'am. Come up a little. Why don't you come up just a little closer so people can see you?
Danielle Barron. My main question is
say your name again, please.
Danielle Barron.
Thank you.
Is there something in place that when we bring people in, that you're going to bring us together so we grow together and not separate? Because if you bring all the Latinos in, Sometimes you have groups that want to come in and meld with the community, melting pot America. Then you have others that they want to just set up their own little communities and be away. And if going forward with this, I think to grow and be healthy, there needs to be, is it a community things that you can, these are the new people in the community, is there going to be opportunities for them to learn English if they'd like to? I mean, how do we grow together and stay healthy and stay, like a safe community?
Well, you got the vision right there. That's what this is really all about. Thank you for the question. Carlos, how about you weigh into that?
So, since I have a lapel pin, or lapel mic, I want to repeat the question to make sure I understood the thesis of it. How do we grow together? How do we, as a community, understand them and they understand us so that it's more of a cohesive unit versus little separate areas?
Yeah, like melding together.
Correct.
How do you do that instead of keeping it separate?
Yep. So in the live component, we have several different areas. Housing, where do they live, et cetera, et cetera. But there's an education component, and I did a poor job talking about that earlier, and I apologize. One of the most important pieces of what I do and what we do with the steering committee and everybody that's involved is education. Education that has two sides. Educating the population that's coming in into everybody's way of doing things here, the values, how we get along, how we do things, what it looks like to be a resident in Greene County, and then also turn that back around and educate the community as to the folks that are coming in. One of the things that many people don't understand, especially companies, when they go out and recruit Latinos, is that they think that Latinos are all the same. They think that we speak Spanish the same. They think that we have the same religious beliefs. They think that we have the same priorities. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Latinos are the most diverse group in this face of the earth. We come from 33 different heritages. We speak many different forms of Spanish. Heck, some of us don't even speak Spanish, right? So your question is actually probably one of the most important things that we can talk about, because without education, it doesn't work. So I didn't talk about that at length, and I apologize about that, but to answer your question is yes, we will do that. And it will begin with employers. It will begin with working with our infrastructural system, with the cities, with the community organizations, with our faith-based organizations. So making sure that you understand, as a Greene County resident, who it is that's here that you're seeing at the grocery store, or seeing at the DMV, or seeing around town, so that you understand their walk of life and how to really kind of, like you said, meld together.
Okay, we have to head to Rippey. We have another meeting at 7:30 tonight there, but which brings up, going forward, we want you to continue to bring your questions, your ideas, your discussion. Happy to talk to any of you anytime about this. And if I don't know the answers, I'll line you up with the people that will, because the more you understand and know about this, the better this is all going to work. And so the next opportunity here in Jefferson will be Thursday, May 5th. At 6 o'clock here. We have one meeting that night. So 6 o'clock on Thursday, May 5th, we'll be back in Jefferson. But now we're off to Rippey, and then we're doing all the other towns around the county over this week and next week. So thank you all for coming. This has been a great discussion. I hope you learned something, and I hope you'll join us and support this project and we're going to transform this county. Thank you all.